Hello, welcome to the Jay Show. It's so good to have you here. This is Dr. Jay Smith. This is now the 13th episode. That's a lot of episodes I have over here with me. Well, Hatun Tash, it's good to have you back again.
Thanks for having me again, Jay.
This is number 13.
Number 13, it's been a long time.
We've been looking at the Quran. In all of the previous 12, we've looked at the Quran, we've been unpacking the Quran, we've been asking questions about the Quran, we've been really being critical of the Quran. We're doing things that really I've never heard anybody else do before. Give us some of the things that we have come up with so far.
So far we are trying to deal with the claim Muslims are making that Quran throughout history never changed. It is exactly the same Quran that Muslims are reading today all around the world. Not even dot of the Quran changed. Yet,
so it doesn't matter whether you are in Sumatra, it doesn't matter whether you're in Iran, it doesn't matter whether you're in London or United States or any country, anywhere in the world, the Arabic Quran they're reading, we're not talking about translations here, the Arabic Quran they're reading is exactly the same in every country.
From Malaysia to Alaska, from Jordan to Turkey, from Africa to Russia, wherever
even
you are.
Timbuktu, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The Arabic Quran you are reading is exactly the same.
This is what I've heard for
and
35
years.
years.
It has been exactly the same since 650.
Okay.
So we are looking
and
at
you
that.
say 650 because that's Uthman.
That's when Uthman canonized the Quran and then ordered to burn all the manuscripts.
So the traditions tell us.
That's what tradition tells us. Yet in 2017, in somehow God has been gracious to us. We've got 26 different Arabic Qurans from the Hafs Quran. Hafs Quran is the Quran which has
difference from the Hafs Quran. It means difference from this Quran that we
we've
have
got
right
26,
here. This red one here.
Yes,
that's the Hafs Quran.
Yes,
that's the canonized Quran that we use in the world today. That's the one that we use here in Britain, and that's the one I've grown up with. But you're saying that there are 26 other ones different than that.
Yes, 26 different Arabic Qurans other than Hafs Quran.
In the Arabic text, not in the English text.
Yes, we are talking about the Arabic scripture because we are aware that Muslims don't take the translations of the Quran as the Quran. We are looking at the Arabic writings and then we are comparing the Arabic writings. So we've got 26 different Arabic Qurans. We sat down and then we looked at the variations to hoping to find 10 or 20 variations from one Quran to another Quran. Yet we came up 45,339 variations from one Quran to other Quran.
Ooh, it boggles the mind. It just boggles the mind.
We didn't have chance to look all the 26 Qurans. So
you've
we
only looked at
only
23 of them, haven't you?
23 or 24.
And that's where you found the 45,000 already. And you found quite a few more just a few weeks ago. You found over 1,300 just within a week's period. You're still going to keep working on it. I hope you continue to do so. We'll probably have to do another series of these in about a year or two. And by that time, it'll maybe have doubled the number you have found.
Actually, I'm hoping by that time, soon after Muslims watch this episode, they will able to prepare a critical edition of the Quran for us, that we can just do the work, that we can just go through the work they have done for us.
Okay.
I don't think it should be Christians' job to look at the Arabic Qurans and then see how they messed up. So we are hoping that very soon Muslims will produce critical version of the Quran and then we can look at that Quran.
And the only reason you have done this, Hatun, is because of the claims you're hearing all the time.
Yeah.
You've heard these claims. I've been hearing them for 35 years. I've always been told, I'm sure everybody watching has been told the same thing. Muslims have always told us that every Arabic Quran, every time someone memorizes the Quran, doesn't matter whether in Timbuktu or in Bombay, they always memorize it the same way. It is exactly the same Quran. Word for word, surah for surah, ayah for ayah, letter for letter.
Dot for dot.
Dot for dot. And that's why we're bringing this up. That's why you have decided, because you found that this wasn't true.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back and remember we had that graph. We're not going to show it again because we've been showing it every time, where we had a good 24 on the right side and another 13 on the left side. These are the different transmitters who transmitted it differently. These are the ones that changed it. These are the teachers and their students. The teachers said it one way, which is different from the Quran that we're using today. And then the students changed it yet again.
Yep.
And you had 24 strong, authoritative renditions, changes. And then you have 13 not so strong.
Yeah. So as we compare the Qurans, we see as Uthman sent the Quran, perfect Quran to city, with someone who knew the Quran very well. Soon after Quran arrived that city, teachers start disagreeing with their students regarding what it's supposed to be in the Quran. And then we are talking only first couple of centuries of Islamic history. By end of 10th century, we end up having like over 30 different Arabic Qurans. According to Muslims, it's only how you recite it. Yet when we look at the Qurans as an individual, we see actually written form of the Quran is different from one another, and it does changing the meaning of the sentence. It does changing the theology in certain verses.
And to prove that, we have been looking at some verses.
Yeah.
We're just looking at a smattering of verses because of the fact that, hold on a minute, it's just too much to look at all the 45,000.
Yeah.
We're just giving you a facsimile of what is out there,
Yeah.
just to make our point. And we have been very careful to not only show these verses, we're showing them pictures of them both on the left in the Hafs. We're
Yeah.
using the Hafs as our
Official Quran.
official one, comparing others like the Warsh, Ibn Kathir, and others,
Yeah.
to show how different they are, verse by verse by verse. Let's go back to that. We've looked at Surah 1, we've looked at Surah 2, we've looked at Surah 3, we've looked at Surah 7, we've looked at Surah 9. Now we're moving into Surah 10. Let's look with Surah 10, Ayah 2. And let's have our Arab speaker go ahead and read what the Hafs says and what the Warsh says for these two, the same word.
حفص لساحر ورش لسحر.
Now, this is fascinating because here's this little old Dagar Aleph again that has now come raising its head again. Here's this Dagar Aleph. This Dagar Aleph seems to always be coming back. And of course, most Muslims would like to throw it out as insignificant. As we said in the last episode, a lot of our friends at Speaker's Corner keep on saying, hey, it's nothing much, just a Dagar Aleph. Who cares? It keeps the meaning the same. So let's see if it does keep the meaning the same in this surah, in this ayah. In the translation in the Hafs, with the Dagar Aleph there, it says this: have the people been amazed that we revealed, and they're talking about revelation here, to a man from among them. The disbelievers say, indeed, this is surely a magician, which is somebody who does magic.
Yeah. In Warsh version of the Arabic Quran, we read, have the people been amazed that we revealed to man from among them? The disbeliever says, indeed, this is surely a work of magic.
Oh, wait a minute. So here you have in one case a person, and the other case you have an action.
Yeah.
A person or an action, completely different. Now, so is a revelation to a man the work of a magician or a work of magic?
That's a good question to ask our Muslim friends. And as I said in previous episode, we will never know what Allah meant in the first place.
We don't, because both of these, both the Hafs and the Warsh, are much later. They're coming to us in the 9th and 10th century. They're not even the original ones, and so that's why it's very important that we look and say, folks, you've got a problem here. Muslims, you've got a problem here, because is a man... if this concerns a man or does this concern an action? By putting the Dagar Aleph there or taking it away, it changes the meaning
Are we
significantly.
talking about the magician or are we talking about the magic? So there are two different things. Even I'm not English speaker, even I am aware there are two different things.
There you go. Let's go to the next verse, and this is Surah 15. We're going to jump to Surah 15. We're going to skip 11, 12, and 13. There are so many there, but we just want to get the best that we can show to give an idea of what we're about.
Yeah.
And let's look at the Hafs and the Warsh again, and let's look and see what this does to the words there, having our Arabic speaker do this at this time.
حفص ننزل ورش تنزل.
Okay, here you have not only a diacritical difference, you also have a vowelization difference. So if you look at the Hafs, you see the nun with one dot above the letter and a dhamma above it. So there's not only the dot is singular and the dhamma there. When we look over to the Warsh, it is two dots above the letter, and that makes it a ta with a fatta, not a dhamma. So you have a vowelization that is different, which then changes also. In the case of the Hafs, it then has a Z. It has to go down to a kasra, whereas in the Warsh, it stays as a fatta. So you can see this changes it completely. And look at how it changes the translation of it by changing not only the vowelization, but the diacritical marks. The translation in the Hafs is, we do not send down the angels except with truth, and the disbelievers would not then be reprieved.
in version of the Arabic Quran tells us the angels do not descend except with truth, and disbelievers would not then be reprieved.
Well, that's fascinating. So really, here you have a problem of who's doing the action here.
Yeah.
Does Allah send down the angels, or do the angels descend of their own accord?
Yeah, we need to ask the question, who is the one who is doing the job of sending?
That's right. Who is actually causing them to descend? God or angel. So if you take out a vowel and put another vowel in this case you take out the dhamma and put in a fatha, you're going to change, and you put the 1 dot to 2 dots, you're going to change not only the context, you're going to change the tense, you're going to change the action. Fascinating how something as insignificant as that does change the meaning.
And as we talk about the angels, we are aware that Islamic tradition a bit messed up with the angels. We don't know actually who are those angels, what are those angels. So I think it's fair to ask the question, how those angels are descending, who is sending them, or are they using their own will to come down, or what's happening?
Hatun, you're bringing this up from what we just did this last Sunday at Speaker's Corner, which is now on video. You can go see it in our Fander films. Are these angels, is this Gabriel, is this Michael, are angels the same as these individuals? There's a lot of confusion as to who these angels are, even in the Quran. You can then understand why this confusion is, because even the writers of the Quran were changing the tense, changing the context, and sometimes, in this case, Allah has the action, sometimes the angels have the action. If that's going to be changed at this level, can you then understand why the theology and the meaning and then the understanding of who angels are and what their jobs are can be confused, even confusing whether or not Gabriel can be or Jibril can be an angel.
And again, sad reality, because Muhammad didn't compile the Quran, because we don't have the Quran from the time of Uthman, we will never know what Allah meant in the first place.
We're not even talking about Muhammad there. We're just talking back to Uthman. We don't even have his Quran. That's for a whole other series we're going to get into later. Let's now move on to the next verse, and this is Surah 18, Ayah 36. And let's have our Arab speaker go ahead and read the words there.
حفص منها ورش منهما.
You can see anybody who doesn't even read Arabic, just take a look at these two words and see that there's a meme that has been added later that does not exist in the first one. Minha, it does not have a meme between the ha and the aleph. When you look at the warsh, a meme has to be put in because above the ha you have a dhamma and then a meme followed by an aleph. Whereas in the Hafs version, it's just a ha with a fatha above it, followed by an aleph. Can you see visually? Can you see visually how an extra letter has been added? I hope you can do that by just looking at these two side by side. Now let's see how this changes the meaning. So in the Hafs, the translation is, and I think not the hour will ever come, and if indeed I am brought back to my Lord on the day of, in this case, in the day of resurrection, I surely shall find better than this when I return to him.
And in version of the Quran, and I think not the hour will ever come, and if in need I am brought back to my Lord, I surely shall find better than both of them when I return to him.
Wow, 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 wow. From better than this
versus better than both of
them. Then it's talking about two other things.
Yeah.
So here you can see, will the companion, when they return, find a better place or a better place than the two others?
Yeah.
Completely different context here. Who are these two others that the Warish is referring to, whom he will be better?
We will never know. We will never
it's
know.
It's not just a better than this, singular, it's better than the two of them.
Yep.
Plural, or dual in this case. So here you can see by taking, in this case, adding, taking out the fatha and adding a dhamma, which then requires a mim to be added to it, it becomes dual. Warsh has really changed what the Hafs was saying. Which came first, we don't know, because they were both being created in the 8th and 9th and 10th century. But can you see why we're bringing this up?
Yeah.
Visually, you can see the difference. The context changes,
Yes.
the theology changes, and of course, then you really wonder which is the real one. Which was the one that was really sent down to Muhammad? Well, obviously, I would suggest neither.
We will never know.
You're saying
We
that an
will
awful
never
lot,
know.
and you can
Because
see why.
that's important. That's important. Muhammad didn't left Quran.
Didn't
We
leave any Quran for us.
Didn't leave any Quran for us. We don't have anything from Uthman. We are just depending on the writings are given to us from 8th century, 9th century, and they're all different from one another. And those verses affects eternity of our dear Muslim friends, and they will never know what meant Allah in the first place.
Okay, now, we have not proven that we have nothing from the time of Uthman yet.
Yeah.
That's in the next series that we're going to get
Sorry.
into. We're going to look at the earliest manuscripts, and we're going to see exactly what you're saying, that not any of the earliest manuscripts come from the 7th century. They do not come from the time of Uthman. And so that's why we're making assumption here that we cannot prove yet on screen. Okay, let's now move on to Surah 18, Ayah 86. And I will ask our Arab speaker if she can read the Arabic there in the Hafs, and in this case, the Ibn Amir.
حفص حمئة ابن عامر حامية.
In every previous case where we've seen the Dagar Alaf, it has been the Haf that had the Dagar Alaf, and the other, Warsh and the Ibn Amr. Ibn Amr equals, in this case, also supports the Warsh.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the Dagar Alaf. I'm sorry, it does have the
It's
Dagar
the
Alaf. And in the case of the Hafs here, it has a Hamza, which is missing in the Ibn Amr. So how does that change the meaning? Let's look and see what the translation
Yeah.
is.
Can you read the
For the
Hafs?
Hafs, I
I'll
will.
read the Ibn Amr.
Until when he reached the setting of the sun, he found it set in a spring of murky waters.
In Ibn Amr, until when he reached the setting of the sun, he find it setting in a spring of extremely hot water.
Hold on a minute. Now, Hunter,
Where does
you're not a native
sunset-
English speaker, but can you see the difference between murky and hot?
I do.
What
I
is
do.
murky water? What is a murky water?
It's murky. It's messy,
Cloudy.
cloudy, messy.
So if you're swimming in a lake and you see it's very cloudy and there's been a
Yeah.
lot of dust, a lot of
Yeah.
dirt that has been dug up, you cannot see past
and
past
we
your
would know
hand.
you shouldn't go to that kind
It's very
of water.
dangerous. You don't want to swim in that murky water
Yeah.
because you don't know what you're going to hit. Hot water is completely different. Hot
Yeah,
water
so
is what you get in a
go
hot
to
springs.
Jacuzzi, you go in the jacuzzi and then you get hot water.
Oh, jacuzzi.
Yeah.
Jacuzzi. Okay, so a jacuzzi has hot water, but it certainly doesn't have murky water.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't get into a jacuzzi if it had murky water, but I will get into a jacuzzi if it has hot water.
Yeah, so it talks about sun setting place, and in one of the occasions, according to Hafs, it's in a murky water. According to Ibn Amr, it is extremely hot water.
So if you take away the dagar alif, but add in a hamza
Hamza.
in one case, or you take out the hamza and add a dagar alif, it changes from murky to hot, from murky
Yeah,
to hot. Now,
extremely hot.
there's a huge difference between dark and gloomy and extremely hot water.
Yeah.
I'll go with the hot water. I wouldn't go with the murky water. One's more healthy than the other. As you say, jacuzzis are fun to be in, providing it's not too hot. Fascinating, isn't it? Because this
Yes.
changes the context. It changes what is happening. This is the story, you know the story of. This is
Yeah,
the story
where
of Dual Karnain.
Yeah, where
Dual
they find
Karnain.
the sun setting place.
Or Alexander the Great
Yeah.
in Surah 18. And he's looking and he sees the sun setting in murky water or in extremely hot water.
And then when we look at the traditions, there are the people who are sitting there. So are the people are sitting next to murky water, or they are sitting on the next to extremely hot water?
You can understand. In fact, stop and think a minute. Hold on a minute and see. Why would you change it from murky to extremely hot? Well,
Because you
scientifically
are-
thinking, if you're scientists in that time of the year, in the 9th century, you don't understand anything about the distance of the sun, and you're watching the sun set. You're on the beach, and you're watching the sun set, and you think, well, wait, wherever the sun is, it would then heat the water because you're thinking the sun setting in the
yeah.
water. So somebody's sitting there looking at this, say, wait a minute, it must be murky. It can't be murky because the water I'm looking at, it could be at a lake or maybe it's on
Yeah.
the seaside. It's not murky where they're sitting. Maybe it's better if we change this to hot because the sunset would steam the water up, would make it hot. And that's why even thinking it through, they probably changed it to try to make it more correct.
That's
Pre-scientific.
That's a good theory, but we will never know what was their intention. We will never know that.
You're kind of getting repetitive on this, Hatun. You're full
Sorry
of not
about that.
knowing. You're full of doubt. I like to try to think through why they came up with this conclusion.
Sorry about
and
that.
I love the fact that probably this is why they really thought it was going to steam the water up. But you do not do that to the Arabic text, and you certainly not do that to the Word of God.
Yeah.
If it really is the Word of God, which is the one he intended? What was it that Alexander the Great saw? Did he see the sun? As we know, it doesn't set into any water.
Yeah.
That's man's way of thinking. And that's why, interestingly, even that story from Dual Qur'an, it comes from actually a tract written by the great, not great, emperor called Heraclius,
Yeah.
written in 632. He wrote this tract as an aggrandizement for himself, saying, this is me. I'm the one that Alexander the Great's talking about in 300 BC when he goes to the west and he sees the sun setting in the water, and he goes to the east and he sees the sun coming back out of the water. As he's looking at it, he's saying, Alexander the Great then goes to the north and he sees people being, they're being
Yep.
destroyed by these barbarians. He builds a wall of iron and brass. We're not even going to talk about that. And then the people turn to him and says, in 900 years, someone's going to come and going to destroy those barbarians across the mountains. And Heraclius says, it is me. I'm the one
Yeah.
that this prophecy is about. I'm the one that Alexander the Great was referring to. It's a political tract. That gets incorporated into the Quran in Surah 18. Of course, when they incorporate it, it looks like, in one case, Hafs thought it was murky water, and Ibn Amir thought it may be hot water. But listen, this is just a nice little tract that comes from a man made anyway. You
Yeah.
can change it at will as you want.
Yeah.
Fascinating. We
And
can unpack that.
it's only playing with couple of small letters of Arabic language.
A Dagar Aleph or not
Yeah,
a Dagar Aleph
Hamza, yeah.
changes it completely, and in one case putting a Hamza in or taking it out. Now let's go on, and we have a few minutes left, so we want to continue on with Surah 19. Verse 77, let's have our Arabic reader then read the two words there.
حفص ولدا خلف ولدا.
So let's take a look at this. On the Hafs side, waladan, and you have a fatha above the letter waw.
Yeah.
And on the Khalaf side, you have a dhamma above the waw, which makes it wuldan versus waladan.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have a wala, you have also a fatha above the lam. But in the Khalaf side, you have a hamza, a sukun, sorry. So you've got a real problem here because one is singular and the other is plural. So let's read the translation. In the Hafs case with waladan, then have you seen he who disbelieved in our verses and said, I will surely be given wealth and a child.
In Khalaf, it is, then have you seen he who disbelieved in our verses and said, I will surely be given wealth and children.
So are the disbelievers given one child or many children? Well, there's a huge difference there.
Yeah.
I would want to know how many children I get if I disbelieve. If I disbelieve, do I just get one child or many children? Depends if you like children or not. And therefore, it may make you a believer or a disbeliever.
Yeah.
You don't like children, so you probably want to be a disbeliever in this case of Allah. If someone who likes children would want to be a believer. I'm just playing with games here, but
Yeah.
can you see it? This does make a difference, and you can see it certainly makes a difference to the disbeliever.
Yeah.
So simply by adding waladan or wuldan, by changing the vowel here, by putting a fatha and changing it to a dhamma, it changes the context
Yeah,
completely.
from singular to plural.
Okay, now let's go to Surah 37. We're jumping quite a few here because we're running out of time. We don't want to do too many. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds we could look at.
Yeah.
Let's now look at Surah 37, Ayah 130. And let's have our Arabic speaker read these here in turn.
حفص الياسين ورش آل ياسين.
Okay, this is fascinating.
Sounds looked very, very same.
It's both talking about Elias,
Yeah.
the prophet Elias, but it makes a huge difference by either il or ali, by either putting an aleph there with a kasra at the bottom, or putting an aleph there with a fatha at the top and a hamza before it. Can you see what happens? It changes it from peace be upon Elias, the prophet,
Versus peace be upon the family of Ali. Yes.
Well, wait a
So,
minute. If I was the
get
family,
blessed.
I would rather go with the Warsh. If you don't like your family, and Alias didn't get along with his family, he wants to go with the Hafs. So I'm sure his family would like to know, wouldn't you? I would like to know if I were his family as to whether I'm included in that piece or
In
only
that
he is
blessing or
included
not,
on that
yeah.
piece. And that he has a big difference theologically speaking too. Because is the whole family come along with him? Are they incorporated into his blessing, or
Yeah.
only he incorporated into that blessing? That has a huge difference, would make a big significance, and I would like to know that significance.
And we will never know.
Oh, there you go again. You're kind of getting used to that one. Let's go on to Surah 38, Ayah 45, and let's read now the difference between the Hafs and the Al-Bazi here.
حفص عبادنا البزي عبدنا.
Wow, okay. I just let people look at that, and you can see here's the Dagar Aleph been added again. The Dagar Aleph, in this case, has been added in the Hafs, and it's missing in the Al-Bazi. And when you take the Dagar Aleph and you add it or subtract it, it comes back to either plural or singular. We had one of
Yeah.
these similar to that, so this is similar to that we had earlier. So the translation in the Hafs would be, and remember our slaves, Ibrahim, Isaac, and Yaqub, the owners.
In Al-Bazi, it will be, and remember our slave, Ibrahim, Isaac, and Yaqub, the owners.
Here, yeah, immediately you can see there's a problem here. Hafs has it correct. I would suggest the Hafs probably has it correct. Why, Hatun? Why does Hafs have it correct?
Because after using plural vocabulary, he is giving us three different names, and in the context, it's plural.
It has to be plural, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So with the Hafs, with the Dagar Aleph, it makes sense, and it also is consistent because there are three names: Abraham, Isaac, and
Yaqub.
Jacob. Jacob with Jacob. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are three. So therefore, slaves would make sense.
Yeah.
Why in the world did Al-Bazi put it back to slave
And we will never know.
when he then contradicts himself by saying owners plural?
Yeah, I guess again we have to remember what Al-Kindi said. Quran cannot be word of God because it has very, very poor Arabic. And we see from Al-Bazi's writings, yes.
We're going to pick up and we're going to have one more segment, and we're going to introduce 5 more examples before we wrap the whole thing up. But
Yeah.
can you see what we've done here just by looking at these, going up through and including Surah 38, Ayah 45? Obviously, there's a problem here. These are difficulties you can't just slough away. You can't just walk away. Muslims, be careful. These are things that you need to deal with. We're bringing this up here because we have heard over and over again that your Quran is perfect. It's inimitable. I love that word. You use it all the time. It has no error. It has no contradiction. It has no historical anachronisms. Everything you see in that Quran, you believe, is on those eternal tablets that exist in heaven, that were revealed to Muhammad over a 22-year period from 610 to 632, and that were compiled completely at the time of Uthman, and that it's never changed. Nothing has changed. You really do believe that everything you're looking at is exactly as it has been. We're showing you now that this is not the case. This is difficult, I know, and many of you are going to get upset, and many of you are going to try to ask your scholars. You're going to go to your imams and say, is this true? What Hatun has found. Is this true? Listen, don't trust us. We could be lying. Don't think that what we're saying in here is the end of it. You go and you look at these Qurans. You look at these slides. Pull them down. You do a comparison between one picture and the other picture. Look at the words within them. Look at, we didn't write this. This is not our writing. Hatun did not waste her time doing this. All she did was collect them. You now look at it and you come to a conclusion and realize that everything we're pointing to proves that this is nothing more than a man-made book. God bless you. It's good to be able to talk to you. This is the end of the 13th segment. We have one more to go where we're going to wrap it up and show you some really devastating material, and then we're going to come to conclusions and let you come to your conclusions. This is Jay then, over and out here in London.